try and boost biodiversity on the island. The company also say they want to maximise the social benefits of the development and minimise the impact on existing local livelihoods. Lisa Dean heads up the company's social programme. Before joining Rio Tinto, she spent 20 years working for the NGO Care International. She sees her new job as a continuation of her life's work.
NGO workers like to think of themselves as change agents. And if you're talking about change, I think, the private sector is certainly going to bring a lot more to the table than the NGO sector has been able to do. We're talking about job creation, we're talking about wealth creation, we're talking about, enterprise creation. These are significant changes backed by, a lot of money, which is, the investment that the project represents. So, I'm still working with populations. I'm still working on development issues. Nothing's changed in that regard. But I'm working in a context that really is going to provide unprecedented opportunities.
A lot of media coverage of the project says there's a lot of local opposition.
Well, I don't think the opposition was all that local. There was opposition, and some of it came from NGOs. And I think some of their concerns were legitimate and have been addressed by the company in the meantime. So that opposition, in fact, probably caused the company to readdress certain issues and to raise the bar in terms of, the standards that they, both environmental and social standards that they're applying.
However, it seems that Rio Tinto, just like Gabriel Resources, may have been listening a little too much to foreign NGOs and not enough to locals who will live beside the mine.
Well, this is a village that is, right next to the mining operation, or will be right next to the mining operation. They do depend on fishing. And we wanted actually to work with them on aquaculture to see whether they were interested in fish farming. Essentially they were like, we fish, but what we'd really like to do is have a job. So they can stop fishing, going out on their pirogues and, hazardous waters and, just employ us, and then you won't have to worry about the improved fishing practices.
George is anxious to meet locals. People like himself who will benefit if these large mining projects go ahead.
What do you wish for this village?
Shalamni bafan shoze ifangapia ze nasi mishangapia kumanaki mishasha mju batuzon ureshinjwa abzumataza kamtanat ndi manding toto marmarzo michimyashinje kakawira.
You can see these trees here, and there are three
Then we
species
meet Mark
of trees
Fenn,
in the mangrove.
the country representative of the Worldwide Fund for Nature. He has been fighting a lengthy campaign against the project in Fort Dauphin.
In the background, and there's an underground aquifer, an underground river, which actually comes out in a major river just to the north of here.
Except he doesn't actually live in Fort Dauphin, the town he wants to save. He has moved to the regional capital, Tulare.
So here we're...
First, Mark shows us around his planned luxury home.
It's going to just be a simple structure with a story with a little veranda which looks over the ocean over here. Yeah. I've been
And his luxury
here
catamaran.
ever since I got here, and it was a dream of mine.
How much did you say it was?
I bought this for about $35,000, which was a good price. It came with everything.
The average salary in Madagascar is less than $100 a month.
You have to dream. You'll get one someday. When you come back in 5 years, I'll buy another one.
Someday,
you
maybe.
can buy this one, and I'll give...
He told us about his difficulties with the proposed mine.
The town will change because the major economic activity will become the future mining project, and there will be an influx of people coming into town. And I think the quaintness of Fort Dauphin, the small town feeling, will certainly change. I've always liked Fort Dauphin because from the time we first arrived, within 2 to 3 months, everybody got to know us and called us by our first name. It's quite a small town. It's quite quaint. My children have been born and raised there.
Except in reality, he hasn't raised the children there. They go to school in South Africa.
Like home. I feel like a resident.
But people in Fort Dauphin are very poor.
George, you've raised a very good question. But at some point, I'm going to turn it back on you. How do we perceive what is rich and what is poor, who is rich and who is poor. You spent some time in Fort Dauphin. People are economically disadvantaged. People have no jobs. But if I could put you with a family and you count how many times in the day that family smiles, if you could measure stress, and then I bring you back to Romania and I put you with a family well off, or New York or London, and you count how many times people smile and measure stress, and you look at how those people interact, then you tell me who is rich and who is poor. 100 cows.
This guy, Mark, he says to me, I don't know what is poverty, and how could I don't know? Because I live in poverty, because I have a big family, and just father work for family, and it's very hard. Was very hard because missing very much things missing. I don't understand the Olympics. People who work for Greenpeace. I don't understand how could think like this.
But people have a tendency when they have money here, generally, and maybe it's a weakness, but they spend it. And I'll tell you why. Because they don't want to hang on to it, because if they have money, everybody asks them for it. So if somebody finds a sapphire and gets like 20 million or 2 million RERE for that sapphire, 3-4 days it's gone. They'll buy cases of beer, invite their friends, they'll throw a party, they'll just buy their stereo, buy their jeans. 3 days, 4 days, the money's gone. In Madagascar, the indicators of quality of life are not housing. They're not nutrition specifically. They're not health in a lot of cases. It's not education. A lot of people children in Fort Dauphin don't go to school because the parents don't consider that to be important.
So, according to Mark Fenn, people in Madagascar don't really know how to handle money and don't send their children to school because they don't value education.
And what would you do? What would you do with the money? Is there not enough money at the moment?
Traditional village life is under threat, but not, as the environmentalists say, because of the planned mine. Instead, local people such as Georgine have exhausted the wood supply from the nearby forest. This means she can no longer make a living weaving mats from local timber.
Because they get not enough stuff necessary for weaving mats. It's not enough anymore in the forest, and the timbers also are not enough in the forest. That's why they get not enough money.
So what was going on? It seemed that Western environmentalists were trying to stop people in developing countries from reaping the benefits of industrialization, denying them the human right of a job and decent housing. I travelled to London, home of the Industrial Revolution and great thinkers, to find out more. George couldn't get a visa, but he told me not to worry. He was going to spend a few extra weeks in Madagascar discussing development issues with local people. Roger Smith is the former head of the Millennium Seed Fund at Kew, Britain's Royal Botanical Gardens, the world centre for study and preservation of plants. They work with Rio Tinto in trying to preserve Madagascar's remaining rainforest, which is gradually being destroyed by locals who use its resources to supplement their meagre incomes.
It goes on all the time as people try and find their livelihoods in relatively poor countries like Madagascar. They're going to use their biodiversity to Well, it is their social security. Something like 60% of the people there live on less than $1 a day, and about 40% of them don't have the adequate energy intake.
Not only in the treasure below the earth are we fortunate, but reaching to the sky in soaring perpendiculars is another rich gift of nature. Our magnificent forests.
It's what we did in Europe. You know, we sat here at Kew. There should be oak forest, but it isn't, because we cleared it a long time ago and we converted it. I think what you have is always choices being made about how you use that land, and you can either manage it for wildlife, in which you wouldn't have Kew, or you can manage it for economic purposes, out of which you end up with an economy that can afford to have a Kew.
Productivity up 5 times. American enterprise has harnessed fire and water, wind, sun, and soil to produce an abundance of everything. We have dug deeply from the earth to replenish the nation and a world in need. As here in the largest open pit mine in the world.
That's what's really new compared to the previous decade.
Frank Ferredi is an author sociologist at the University of Kent. He specialises in studying how the Western world views development issues.
Yeah, young kids, growing up in Britain or France, America, can decide to drive a car or not to drive a car. They can make a decision about whether to recycle or not to recycle. They have a choice about life. If you're a peasant living in Romania or in East Europe and there are no jobs, there are no choices. So if you have an opportunity to get a job, a real decent 9 to 5 on a permanent basis, that to you is but as good as it gets. And from their perspective, that is the future. And I think what we have here are a fundamental clash of two cultures. The tragedy is that you will only hear the Western environmentalist voice. All the global institutions are sensitive and attuned to that particular point of view.
But what's the future for these places? I mean, surely, can we allow them to pollute their environment?
Well, listen to your language. Can we allow them? Who are you to tell them what to do? The point is that human beings have always found ways and means of solving their own problems. And yes, sometimes people make huge mistakes. Sometimes we pollute. Sometimes we destroy things that we shouldn't have destroyed. But in the end, human beings have been very, very good at finding solutions, solving problems. And I think that we have got to trust these people. I mean, are we going to trust these people to work things out for themselves? In the 19th century, you had the missionaries going into Africa and Asia and telling people how to feel, what they really believed in. Today, in the 21st century, we have environmentalist organizations going to large parts of the South or East Europe, telling people, what their communities are like, often telling people that, in fact, we know better than you do what goes on the land, what grows in the nearby areas. And you got this bizarre situation where, although environmentalists claim that they love local knowledge, they love local wisdom, nevertheless, when they disagree with it, they feel they got the moral authority to tell them that's tough. You need to do something else.
Just like Francois Heidebrook, who tells people how to farm.
I know huge investors, want to buy hundreds of hectares in Romania to raise sheep. Well, sheep is an excellent business. Myself, I'm helping an association of sheep producer in Bochum. By myself, I bought 30 sheep. I mean, it's 100% return. You know a bank that gives you 100% return? Sheep. That's the business.
Deepak Lal was born in India. He is a professor of international development studies at UCLA and a visiting professor at University College London. He has written a number of books on the effects of environmentalism on developing countries.
But these NGOs, these environmentalists, they care about the poor. Otherwise, what's their motive?
Well, I don't think they care about the poor. They're the biggest enemies of the poor. And the thing is now, this environmentalism, and a lot of these green issues becoming like, it's a new secular religion. That's what you have to look at it as. First is people are very well off. They're very comfortable in the West now. So what do you